Did it skip 5?
It did.
Okay. Well, this is actual recording now.
I know, we're on it. Sorry, I'm bad at this. Hey there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here with a very dear friend of ours, Laura Phelps. She is a writer. She has 2 books published, and she also writes for Walking with Purpose. If you follow their Instagram, you will see her on their stories and on their posts. But we have the added benefit of knowing her in real life, and we're so glad that she's willing to stay up late and chat with us. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm always up for staying up late and chatting because my house falls asleep really early. So I'm always up for it. So thank you.
Yeah, I need coffee to still be up right now, but I'm happy that you're happy. So, one of the worst parts about not speaking when there's 2 of us is that I have to hold a smile while Monica's talking.
Yeah, but you know what?
Yes,
You
yes.
have
I'm
a
awake.
smile, though. You both, I'm like, that's the other thing that, like, technology is, let's just jump right in here with my insecurities, but it's the teeth.
Yeah.
It's like you have good teeth, both of you. Did you have braces?
Oh. Yeah, my parents spent a lot of money on these teeth, so I thank them.
Well
when
spent.
I don't smile, though, and I'm sure people that watch this will notice, like when I don't smile, I feel it looks like I'm lost or confused why I'm here. So I have to hold it the whole time.
Not lost in deep thought.
But thank you.
Lost.
No, just lost in existentially. Why? But sorry.
Yeah, no, you have beautiful winning smiles, the both of you.
Oh, thank you, Laura. We paid her to say that. All right,
but can you tell us, besides your admiration for our teeth, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And just in your own words, I know Monica introduced you a little bit, but tell us about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Laura Phelps. I did not have braces. I'm one of 4 kids, so I think my sisters got the braces, and then when they got to me, they were like, we're done. I'm a wife. I'm going to be married 26 years in October, which is crazy because I still think I'm 24 years old, and that doesn't add up. But yeah, a wife for a long time. We've got 4 kids. Gosh, how old are they? I've got boy, girl, girl, boy. So 23, 21, 18, and 16, which is crazy. Wow. I live in Newtown, Connecticut. I've got lots of pets. I love my dogs and my cats. And yeah, and I'm a writer and a speaker, Catholic speaker and writer. And yeah, gosh, that's it. I'm just me.
We love you for it.
I'm just always amazed still when people are like still saying I'm a writer doesn't feel real to me. I don't know why.
You are a Catholic celebrity now.
Well, that's pushing it, but thank you.
What are some of the highlights? Because I think the work you do is amazing, and we didn't mention it yet, but you also did some of the OSV talks. You were invited to do that, and you've written and been published through OSV, and just like this whole speaking, writing thing. Like, what are some highlights that you have from that time, or from the time or things you're doing right now?
Gosh, that's a great question. So highlights, the whole thing has been really. It's totally always right the hand of God, because how it came about. I have so many people that will ask me, how did you start writing? Or like, how do I publish a book? People that like want to be writers. And I started as just like a snarky mommy blogger, like many, many years ago. I was that mom. Like, it was not faith-based. And so I wrote for many years, just really got in the habit of just disciplining myself and sitting down late at night when my kids were little, because that was the only time I had. And I would write from like 9 o'clock till 2 in the morning. And it was just these blogs. So it's a highlight for me is looking back and seeing the way that God used all of these pieces of my story of sitting down and writing. It was just something I liked to do. And then being approached by a publisher and it just sort of spiraling into suddenly people are asking me to give talks, and it all seems still kind of strange to me. Like, it just seems kind of surreal because on the one hand, it's like a dream job, right? To like get to do this and get to speak to people about Jesus. Like there's nothing better. But then on the other hand, there's always that piece of me that I guess it's an insecurity where it's like, I so don't belong doing this, right? Like I'm not a theologian. I didn't study theology. I was a musical theater major at Emerson College, and a dropout at that, like not at a college, out of the major, so it's like, I always feel like a little underqualified. So a highlight for me really is just the fact that I've been called to do this and that I get to do this. It's humbling and it's exciting. I mean, let's be honest. It can be really fun work. And I think the biggest highlight of all for me is that because I don't look at myself as a Catholic celebrity, I don't look at myself as really smart or really like knowing the catechism. I look at myself as a total mess. Like I have failed in so many ways. And really been put through a school of suffering, like we all are. And I just love the highlight for me is that the Lord is allowing my gift of oversharing and my love of just, I don't have a problem kind of bearing all. And, but he uses that. And like, that's been the healing for me, but even better to have people share with me their story after that they feel comfortable enough to tell me what's going on with them. And that to me is everything. That to me is everything. And I remember like hearing that like the most powerful words you could ever say to somebody are me too. Like those two words of just being like, yeah, I get it. Like I'm there too, because I'm sure men experience this too, but I've never been a man, so I can only speak as a woman, that you can feel very alone in your sufferings and in your insecurities and just in your day-to-day whatever. And so just to know I don't do this alone and that other people are walking the same path, or it doesn't even have to be the same path, but just that overarching feeling. That's the highlight for me, that like, oh, wow, like my mess and my failures and my suffering are not wasted and they're not in vain. And they're going to make maybe somebody else feel like they could go on. Like that gives me the strength to say like, okay, I could do this. I can do this another day because somebody else is going to be encouraged by it. So that's like really probably the biggest highlight for me. It's not the paycheck.
I think you've I think that you do a great job of expressing like who you are through your writing though. Like you're very, very down to earth. Definitely the person that I read, which is a little odd to read from someone that you know. But like you, it's definitely your words that are coming off the pages and it's your voice. And like that's it. That must have been so difficult to do. I remember the first time I met you. Do you remember the first time I met you?
Renzo, I have a story. I don't know. I wonder if it's going to be the same first time we met story. You go.
I just remember you yelling at the I was a stay-at-home dad. And I don't remember what we were doing, but you noticed me after daily mass, and you were just yelling things. And I was like, "Who's this lady yelling?"
Like, what do you mean?
You were very excited because it was like, yeah, but like nicely. But you were like, "You go to daily mass. Look at you with all your kids," and I was like, "I don't know you." And then later I told Monica, she's like, "Oh, that's Laura," and I was like, "I don't know who Laura is." And later on, I got to know you.
Okay, so
that was my first. Maybe I met you sooner.
My first memory of you. Okay, this is funny. So I was at daily mass because I had my conversion. So I was going to daily mass because I needed to be there, and because I went to a Matthew Kelly conference, and he said, if you want your life to change, go to daily mass for 2 weeks. And I was like, done. Like, because I want my life to change, because we were struggling. My marriage was on life support and I was struggling, and we were new. We moved to Sandy Hook from California. We didn't have many friends. Like I was really not in a good place. And so Matthew Kelly, thank you. I took him up on his challenge, and I've been pretty much a daily masser ever since. And that was over 10 years ago. And so I was there because I was so broken. And then I remember seeing you with all the kids, and I was in awe of that because I was like, that's a man. Like, that's amazing that this guy is so faithful. And you were with like all like, you know, like the girlfriends I know that were like all like the super Catholic, you know, people. And I was just a total fan. And you walked by me at one point, and I remember you saying, "Congratulations on your book." And I was like, "Oh, he knows me." Like, how does he know I wrote a book? Like, I thought you were like, I still think you're awesome. But I was like, this is like this guy who has it so together. He's the best husband. He knows exactly what he's doing. And he congratulated me on my book. Like, it was the greatest honor. And I think this is so amazing because it wasn't until years later when you were on a Zoom call with some of my patrons for Patreon and you shared your story. And that the reason that you were there, like, you were a mess. Like, and I think it's
exactly.
Yes.
But isn't that crazy? Like, even God used that. Yeah. That, like, I don't know. I always think back to that because we could look at people, especially in church, right? And if it's a cute guy with his kids, like Renzo, like every woman loves that. Sorry, Monica, but come on. You see this cute man at church with like wrangling, like not just kids, but like little, and they're like all over the place.
Little.
And
Tiny.
it's just like there's nothing sexier than a holy man. There just isn't. And no, regardless of what you're going through, like we see people and we just like make up the narrative, right? Like what their life must be like. And it's always better than ours. And they always have it more together than we do. And so I thought that was fascinating. I had a woman in the Walking with Purpose ministry at our parish say to me that when I got up to speak about bringing Walking with Purpose to the parish, she was like, that's that girl that I see every morning at daily mass. And she goes, I used to always look at you and think, she's so beautiful. I want what she has. And I was like, that's amazing. Because I was there because I was a mess. Like I didn't have it together. And I love those stories, right? Like those are like, that's probably a better witness of my sitting there day after day and you're showing up every day with these kids than any podcast and any talk we could give, right? It's just like those other people seeing us show up. So, yeah. And Monica, I don't remember what I met
and I love that it's... Monica had known you at that point. I don't.
But you know what? I think I had like known of you. I think it was similar, like this celebrity status of like, well, that's Laura. She runs Walking with Purpose at our church and she writes, and like all of my girlfriends were like, you should talk to her. She's hysterical. She's so wonderful. And I don't know if I don't remember meeting you until Annie joined youth group. Yeah. Like I don't really remember having like a real interaction until I'd met Annie. So it's funny. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's just neat, but I think your point though is so critical. It's just like, it's the act of showing up, like in your mess, in your disarray, like going to the place, like the source of grace. And that's what can like be life-changing. And it doesn't necessarily always like clean up our mess, but it lets us like be in our mess, and it lets us like work in our mess and work through our mess. And like, I think that's so neat though, how you can look at other people and like you said, the narrative that you make up in your head, especially like the two of you as writers, you know, like the stories I'm sure the two of you come up with, right?
I come up with good stories in my head. Very, very good.
Right. And how many of us do that though? Like we have these perceptions of people and we forget the story behind, like the actual story in their life, because it's probably way more dramatic, but it's way more like authentic and vulnerable and real than this like surface story that we've created. So do you mind sharing a little bit more about your conversion story and like, okay, what was going on before Matthew Kelly? Like what brought you?
Yeah. Sorry. And just right before that, one of the thoughts I had is I love the way you framed it in that, like you didn't, like we were going to Jesus because he was a healer. because he is our healer, but you also weren't saying that like, oh, you were healed, therefore that's why you can do these things, but that you are actively being healed and still being healed. And I would say that, like, yes, I'm still being healed. I am not a perfect father. I am not a perfect husband. Just because we have a podcast does not mean we have a perfect marriage. And we know that a lot of our audience, we have people in our audience who aren't Catholic, who don't believe in anything. But they like some of the tips that we have for marriages, for example. And I just like the way you framed your witness, and that's kind of why I wanted to hear from your story, because you converted later in life, not, because of a Steubenville conference when you were in high school, or because you went to Franciscan for college, but you had a much different journey.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
I wish I had that journey, but that's not my journey. I wear the Franciscan sweatshirt and I pretend that I went.
That Annie brought home because she went on a retreat.
Not going, but look, I got the sweatshirt. Anyway, a girl can dream.
I secretly love every time you rock a youth group shirt in a Walking with Purpose post or something.
I'm not wearing it now. I wear them all. I've got the burgundy United. I've got the red, the green.
Yes.
It's like my sleep shirt. And then usually I'm doing Instagram in the morning live. I love that shirt. It's my favorite. So I'm a cradle Catholic. And I never I didn't have some big exodus from the church. It's always been threaded throughout my story. When I went to college, I absolutely fell away, but Nick and my husband and I, we talk about this a lot. Like nowadays it's kids, they stop going to church and it's no big deal. Where me, I stopped going to church, but I pretended I was going. There was still a little bit of respect for my parents that I wasn't going to say I'm not going to Mass. So I went to school at Emerson College in Boston. And when they would come to visit for parent weekend or whatever, I made sure I knew where a Catholic church was, and we would go. So I still knew I should be doing it. I struggled a lot in college. I like to say I majored in an eating disorder when I gave up musical theater. I kind of poured my whole self into not eating and exercising, and that was my way of having some sort of control and identity. I remember somebody at the cafeteria, the school cafeteria, when I came in, a friend of mine, he looked at me and he said, "Oh my gosh, are you sick?" And that was the biggest compliment you could have given me. I was like, "No, I'm not, but thank you." I was searching. I've been forever searching, and I'm still searching. I'm always searching. Mm-hmm. And so then, all throughout my life, from high school up until getting married, what I loved about the Catholic Church, what I still love about the church, was even if I wasn't going regularly, I would go when I needed to. When there was a on my knees moment, I knew where to go. And I like to say, the Catholic Church is like a mall, right? They're all the same. What's going on. And so I loved that, I could just walk into a church. I lived in LA for many years, and I was home. You walk into the church and you're home. So I was kind of in and out. And when we had kids, obviously we were baptizing our kids and raising them Catholic. So we were doing the Catholic things. But it really wasn't until, I don't even know what year it was, but we were living in California, and I had 4 kids, little kids, no family, no help, no money. And when I say no money, I mean there's a zero and it's red. I think, we say a lot oh, we were broke. No, we had none. There were times, I remember one day, my husband was traveling for work and I was home alone and our rent was due and we did not have it. And I put 4 kids under the age of 8 in my minivan in Hollywood and went to a consignment shop on Melrose to sell my clothes to have money for rent. And the worst part of that story is they didn't take half of them. And I was I'm not even cool enough. I don't even have good enough clothes to sell. This is so bad. So that's how we were living, and it was really stressful. It was really stressful. And the way that I didn't see it then. Like when you're in the storm, you can't see it. It's like, I always say it's when like you're in the ocean with your kids, it's hard to spot their heads in the ocean. But if you get out and stand on shore, you can see them better. So I wasn't out on the shore. I was like in the water. I was in the storm with my husband. Like we just couldn't see straight. And I think he felt very much ashamed, right? Like as the man to try to provide, and he couldn't. And I was just like, you couldn't talk to me about money. Like I would just cry, which was not helpful. It's not a helpful tactic to be like, let's sit down and talk about our life. And I would just cry, which then would just make him feel badly. So we were in this real bad dance of just making each other feel badly. And so that really took a toll. And eventually we got an opportunity to move back east. So I grew up in New York, and my family, my parents and my sister had then moved to Connecticut. And my husband got an opportunity. He was a salesman in LA. He got an opportunity to do sales here in Connecticut. And I was like, that's our ticket, right? Like we're going to move, and we're going to have family, and we're going to have free babysitting, and like life's going to be great. Like we're going to leave all our problems. And it was at a going away party. One of my friends said to me before I left, he said, Laura, just remember, wherever you go, there you are. And I was like, all right, whatever. It's going to be good. And, he was right. So it's like we moved here, and like every problem came with us. And that was a real kind of devastation for me, because I expected the move to change things. I expected it to change us.
Fix everything, yeah.
And it made it worse, because now we were still in the same boat. We had no friends. Like, I got on Facebook for the first time, which was like the pit of hell, because I had nobody to talk to. And like my kids were still little, and then it was like that awkward thing where like, so Belle, who's now 21, when we moved here, she was going into the 4th grade. And that's the last, so that she was at Sandy Hook School, and that's the last, they're like, kinder through 4th. So that's like their graduating year. So the whole year was about like, bring in your pictures, and like we had no history, and like it was hard. It was really, really rough. And my relationship with my husband was just getting worse and worse, because we were stressed and we didn't know how to share that with each other. And I think we kind of resented each other for different reasons, and it was bad. And so that's when it started, just like there was not a happy moment in the household. Like it was really bad, and the kids were tough. And when you're not in a good mood, the kids are really tough. And we didn't have a dog back then, so there was nothing else to kick. And so that's really when we would just fight all the time. And I remember one time my husband saying like, well, like maybe I should just leave. And then I remember thinking, well, here's the problem is we only have one car. So if you leave, like, who's getting the car? Like it didn't even, like we couldn't even afford to leave. You know what I mean? Like, where are you going? And just felt so trapped and so disappointed. And I remember always just like thinking, like doing the dishes and looking out the window and saying like, I can't believe this is it. Like, I just felt like I was made for more. We were made for better. This wasn't what I wanted. I hated everything. Was truly convinced like maybe like I did everything wrong. Like if I married someone else, like maybe like we wouldn't have these problems. Like you start entertaining all these other ideas and temptations, like totally believe the grass is greener, right? Like everybody's got it better. Nobody goes through what we go through. And literally by the grace of God, my husband recognized enough that something had to change. And so when we lived in LA, Matthew Kelly came to speak. And this was right after 9/11. So my daughter, who's now 21, she was newborn in a little infant carrier. And he did a 2-day conference at my parish. And I went, and like I loved him. Like everything he said, I was like, absolutely. Classroom of silence, 10 minutes a day, on it. And like I put my little sticky note on my mirror, and I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm praying every day for 10 minutes. And I did it. For 4 days, I did it. And then that was it. That was it. And so when we moved to Sandy Hook, we were looking at like, what's our parish? What's the kids' schools? And we pulled up our parish, St. Rose of Lima. And the first thing that came up was coming that January, Matthew Kelly. And I was like, oh, like, that's that guy I loved. So it's now January's rolling around, and my husband's ready to leave with the one car we have. And he knew enough to get me to that conference. The catch was we couldn't afford a ticket. And so he called St. Rose, and he told me this later. He told them, he goes, you don't understand. My marriage is on the line. Like, can you get my wife a ticket? And they were like, we are sold out. So sorry. And then the next day they called, somebody canceled, and they gave him like the Super Plus ticket, like along with the book for free. And so I got to go, and that changed everything. Like, I need to meet Matthew Kelly one day and just like hug him, because he really, I mean, he really, God spoke through him, and just hearing that, like, it was just so simple, right? Like, do you want your life to change? And it was like, yeah, yes. I don't like the way I'm living. I don't like the thoughts I'm having. I don't like the time I'm spending on Facebook and not with my husband. Like, I don't like where this is going. And so, yeah, so that started everything. And that, it really just started with going to daily mass. And I would literally just stay after mass. I really miss these days of knowing nobody. I know it's great to know people at church, but there was something really beautiful about me and like 10 80-year-olds at daily mass. Yeah. Like, I was like the youngest. This was before you showed up, Renzo. I was like the youngest one there. But I could sit there for hours before I had to pick up my youngest at preschool. And I would just pray and I would journal. And this is when that other woman was watching me and was like, oh, that's so beautiful. She has it all together. I was just starting. And that was a great time. That was a great, like that honeymoon season of just discovering this treasure chest that we have in the Catholic faith, and really knowing the human person of Jesus. Like, he was always just a plastic figure to me. Like, I learned that God is love, and I made banners my religious ed classes. This was new. Like, breaking open the scriptures was something I was never taught to do. Like, I had a Bible. I used it to press my corsage from the prom. Like, that's what we used our Bibles for. Like, flowers. So that was really, I missed that time. That was a beautiful, beautiful time. And, and that's when everything started to just take on a whole new direction.
So how did things start changing at home with Nick from there?
Let me go ask him. I'll be right back. It's interesting because we, and by we I mean me, like, I wanted to be the savior, right, of him and the world, but really him. And it wasn't still easy, I have to be honest. Like, things didn't change overnight. Like, oh, I found Jesus and now we're both really happy, because he was in a very different place for a while. And that had the potential of being very discouraging. But at least I had God to turn to now. Like, I was learning how to pray. I was like getting up before, and my kids were young at the time, so I get it, like, not having all that prayer time. But like, I noticed like my alarm was getting set earlier and earlier every morning. Like, I'd get up at like 6, and then I was like, and then the next day it was like 5:45, and like within a few months I was getting up at 4:30 just to have that time alone with Jesus. So I think that really helped me kind of stay steady and not give in to all the discouragement, because he wasn't on the same page. And I would try to be encouraging. I'd be like, I'm going to confession, like, and I wouldn't say like, do you want to come? Like, I was just hoping he'd be like, and he'd be like watching sports reporters or something. Or when I would get up and do my morning prayer, he would come down and turn on sports and turn on the news. And I would just sit there and like try to stay silent and just try to model it. and that makes me sound really holy and perfect. I was like cursing him on the inside. Okay, like it wasn't making me happy, but I was just trying to be honest. Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a while, and I would try to encourage him, like, oh, there's a chirp retreat they would announce, like, you should do that. And every year that would come and go, and it was always like, I don't have the time for that, because he travels for work, and like, I already travel, like, I want to be home. So there was always an excuse. So it wasn't still great. I would pray for the change, but I would just try to kind of just keep doing my thing and hope that it, like, I was going to like rub off on him. But ultimately what happened was the shooting at Sandy Hook and having 2 kids in the school, and that broke him down. And I was so grateful at that time, because I had already built up this relationship and this faith, which I just love how God works, because the whole time I'm doing this to save my marriage, but then I was like, oh, this is what it was for. It's like, oh, like you were preparing me for this. So I really felt like in the family I was a little bit, I mean, look, I had my breakdowns. If he heard me saying that I was the strong one, he'd probably laugh at me right now. But I felt like I had a faith to stand on during that. And but that's really what broke him down. And then somebody else invited him to a church retreat, another man, and he said yes. And that's when it started for him. It wasn't really me. It wasn't like my constant asking him to do things. And I always give him a hard time about that. Like, you never do what I say, but somebody else can say it, and then you do it. And that's just the way it is. But that other man inviting him, like, I just think, I mean, women I think are a little bit, it's easier for us to do that, to say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee. And especially if it's a Bible study with childcare. Like, look, if I didn't read the Bible and you offered me childcare, I'd be there. Like, yeah, I'm in. I think it's easier sell for women than for men. It's a little bit awkward. So that was huge. That was huge. And that was really the turnaround for him, was he did go on a church retreat and started to make, his own friends and his own connections. And that's the key, right? And this is something I struggle with up until like today, is that we have very different faith lives. We're terrible at praying together, terrible. And we talk about it all the time, and then we don't do it. We get up in the morning, we each go to our own corners, because I'm like, that's my time and I will not share it. And I don't know if that's good or not, but I'm like, this is it. And so like, we still struggle. We're I always say, like, we're kind of on the same path, but like parallel, like we have yet to like really fully come together in that. But it's a never ending journey, right? Like, we're never quite there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Did I even answer a question? I don't remember what the question was.
You did. You answered plenty.
Yeah.
No, I really liked, I don't know, I know you kind of discounted your role in Nick's conversion, but I would,
example,
I would argue that, well, even just not really the example piece, but I would argue that the grace that was at work was because of your prayer. Because I think it's discouraging, especially because, like, I'm sure you were praying for a very long time for the conversions, but for his conversion. And I don't know, like, who's to say that if it wasn't for your prayers, like, anything would have happened? Like, maybe that man wouldn't have gotten that nudge from God to invite him, which is just, like, I just think it's so beautiful to know that, like, despite all the cursing on the inside, like, you were his rock, praying for him for him to be where he is. Which is really cool. I just think there's a lot there.
Yeah. Yay. Yay me!
Sorry, you had a question. I interrupted.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So do you... so how do you feel like now that you both are working on this healing journey with Jesus, including him on things now, and being more willing to participate in the sacraments of, you mentioned reconciliation and going to Mass, obviously. How do you feel like your marriage now is different now that Jesus is involved? Like, do you feel like even though like your prayer lives are kind of parallel and your spiritualities are maybe a little bit different, we see that a lot, just I think also because even our personalities are different, so our relationship with Jesus looks different because we are different people. But it's hard to argue that like when you invite Jesus into your marriage, that he doesn't come in and have a place at the table and participate in that. Do you feel like you've seen or felt or experienced like a tangible difference now that you both are including Jesus in your day? And
I'm so bad at this. Wait, before you answer that though, I love that you said, I love that you brought up that you guys struggle to pray together. I just think it's worth this because we're gonna go off and I just think it's great that you said that, because like we also struggle to pray together. I think that. Well, and I was going to say, like, we don't, not we, but, like, I don't think we've been taught as married couples on how to do that and how to develop and build a spirituality together. So, like, it's hard enough to build your own, and then you got to build it with another person who doesn't think like you, because clearly she's staying on a script, and I'm just jumping around.
I'm a Jesus hoarder, too. Like, I'm very protective of my morning prayer. Like, that's I don't even... Like, I get mad if he, like, gets out of the bed before me, because I'm like, no. Like, I've got this thing where, like, I don't want to see anybody. I want to get my coffee in the dark and go sit down and do my prayer. It's bad. So, like, I will not share that hour. Like, I just won't. So then we talk about, like, well, how about at night? Like, we can, like, even if it's a decade of the rosary, we were talking to friends, and they were, like, going on about like what they do in the evening. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot. And I don't know, I think I'm just like selfish with my prayer. I don't know. But then I hear I just picture the two of you like holding hands, and I don't know. Do you hold hands?
No, don't. We
because I don't want to.
Please don't put us on any sort of pedestal. No.
I'm touched out by the end of the day, Laura. I have a lot of little kids that touch me all day long.
Yeah. I think has ruined me is listening to Restore the Glory with Heather Kim's husband. Like, why do I picture that they like are holding hands and like, I don't know why.
Yes.
But yeah, we're not that great at it.
His voice.
Right?
Dr. J. Kim, he's got a voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do have a theory that I want to put out there. Well, I guess I'm putting it out there now. No. I think that we have not fully incorporated night prayer into our prayer routine. We've incorporated pieces of it, but I think that if couples could incorporate night prayer, it'd be easier, because there's there's like the leader and then the response.
Yes.
So like you don't feel like you're overlapping on each other. I feel like that might be a good thing to try. We should try that.
We should try
more likely.
My friend just suggested that's what she and her husband do, kind of like a liturgy of the hours,
like a back and forth.
Like back and forth.
We tried it for 4 days.
Yeah. See. Yeah,
we did a 4-day thing, and then we forgot about it.
Together. Yeah. Yeah, it's that keeping up that habit. That's like me and Father Mike Schmitz. I'm on Bible in a decade apparently, because like I just can't get through the Bible in a year. But what was the original question? You asked me a really long question, Monica.
No, sorry, we have a little boy that woke up. Is he okay?
No, he's fine.
Okay,
he just didn't know why we're talking so loud in the living room.
Why are you up right now?
Who's that woman screaming at my father?
You know what though?
He remembers it.
They can't hear us, so they just hear us talking to somebody who's not here.
But it's great.
It's fine.
At our kitchen table, this is very real.
Yeah, this is really what happened.
So go back to your question that I interrupted. It was a really good one.
Thank you. So my question was, now that Jesus you are in relationship with Jesus, and Nick is working on a relationship with Jesus, and you both are, like that's definitely an active part of your lives. Like it's a very important part of both of your lives to really work on healing through the grace of the sacraments of reconciliation and Mass. But how do you feel like Jesus has come in and started to work on and heal your marriage? Like, and what parts have you seen or experienced, like, grace in your marriage, working in your marriage?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. That's a great question. Well, it's interesting. I think looking back, like the last, like specifically like the last 4 years of our life, we've been through some like real significant issues with children, and really handed an incredible cross as parents. And we know, like, we look back and we think, like, if we didn't have Jesus right now, we wouldn't have made it. Like, we wouldn't have made it. And even if it would have been really, really awful. So I think we are just, we're not really perfect at this, but definitely gentler. We're both, what's tough is we are both like we're both a lot. Like, we're both extra in personality. We both like to be right. We both are opinionated, and but we both love passionately too, so like when it comes to our faith, like those are my favorite discussions, like sitting on the deck at night, pour a drink, and like we talk about Jesus. And it's like we talk about the Mass, and we just like both fell in love with the Latin Mass, which really we believe, if we did not have that Latin Mass experience the last year or so, we've been asked to do things as parents to try to help a child that like no parent wants to do, which is get out of the way, which is not good. And I don't think we would have had the strength for that if we didn't have the experience of going to the Latin Mass, because it's so beautiful and it's so clear there that it's just nothing but worship. Like, it's just tangible. You taste it, you see it, you smell it. It's just beautiful. And it's just, that's just really changed us. And I couldn't even tell you exactly how, but what it's done in our lives is it's really made us, it's ordered our lives properly, because Sunday truly is now our favorite day of the week. We don't try to fit Mass in, because the Latin Mass is like so long, and it's not like really early or like last call, like 5 o'clock Sinner's Mass, like your last call. It's like in the middle of the day. But we can do that now. We could do that now. And our kids are older. Sometimes they come with us. Usually they don't. They'll go to the Novus Ordo at our parish, and that's fine. Kids are going. Sometimes we double up and do 2 Masses, but that just became this really beautiful break in our week of like Sunday truly was just for the Lord. And then like you'd come home and we'd make dinner, or like one day like we played a board game, which was like really weird for us, like just like to really do nothing but go to Mass and worship and be with family. And I think that really changed that pace. The change of pace in our really busy, constantly in front of screens sort of life, changed our hearts. Like it really changed the rhythm of just literally like the beating of our hearts. And I think, I think that just really changed us a lot, and has given us the grace and the strength to carry the things that have been put on our plate that we never would have been able to carry otherwise, for sure. For sure. It's grounded us and steadied us in a way.
So
and it's
beautiful.
not something we really need to say out loud. It's not like we sit and verbalize it. We have had that discussion, like, wow, like, thank God we found this when we did, because we've been asked to do some really hard things as parents that up until are both falling in love with the Mass together, we were really butting heads on, because like when you have a child that with whatever issues they may have, when you have a child with extraordinary issues, at least what happened with us for the better part of this journey was we were pitted against each other. Like we took sides, and we never agreed on how to handle the matter, ever. It was just too painful. So this mass and this change of like making Sunday the most important day of our lives, of our week, that really just brought us together in a different way. And like, it's almost like you don't even see it coming, you know, like, cause like when you talk about like praying for my husband's conversion, like I was remembering and just talking to you, like my husband would get up and watch sports every morning. And even if I was there praying, like he would just turn on sports reporters, and I could go back in my journals and find where I would be like writing, like, he's turned on the sports reporters again, like, and all angry. Yeah. And it dawned on me one day, he doesn't do that anymore. But like, and I remember like feeling so badly, like, forgive me, Lord, for like never saying thank you, because I didn't even see it coming. You know, like they say with your kids that we always record their firsts, you know, like their first step and their first word and their first haircut, but we never record their lasts because we don't know when it's happening. And so, yeah, so like that's kind of, that's sort of like how it is, right? Like when suddenly you turn around and you're like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. Like this is better. Or we handled that well, or we were kind to each other. I didn't blame him for that. We're on the same page. We stuck up for each other and didn't side with the kid. Like that was huge for us in this past year. That was huge.
That's beautiful. That reminds me a lot of a message you got in Spiritual Direction once about couple prayer. And you were challenged, like, you know, how do we pray? And you kind of went through like how you pray and we pray throughout the day. And he made sure to like really note, the priest made sure, it's a common favorite priest, that like our nighttime prayer with our kids, is family prayer, and it's couple prayer too, because like we are praying that prayer. Like, even though it's like, we feel like it's to help our kids practice praying, but like we are actually praying it together. And like, I feel like that for you guys is Mass on Sundays, is that to not discount that, like, that's but like that is you and Nick worshiping together. Like, and that is your couple prayer. And that is something that you have come and done in common. And it's like had ripple effects. It's changed the trajectory of your family, because, and again, it's kind of like you said, like looking back, you're like, oh my goodness, you're right. You know, and like we look back and we're like, oh my goodness, once we started praying every night and like really being like, no, every single night we pray, how that changed, like had little small changes that we didn't notice until you look back and you're like, wow. So I just think, you know, for our listeners to just like, don't discount these things that you think are habitual or you think that you're just supposed to do or what have you. Like, you doing it together and being united in that is going to, like, that even just that discipline, even if it doesn't feel good at first, it feels awkward because Latin Mass, you don't know what's happening when you first go or whatever, but like that commitment of just showing up and doing the thing together is your united spirituality. Very cool.
Now, what would you share with anyone in our audience who maybe has not had a conversion experience yet or an encounter with Jesus yet, or even if they had and maybe were similar to what we were saying about, like, you know, we prayed for 4 days and you kind of, you know, lost it. Like, what advice would you give to them to rediscover or retry to find
Stop
Jesus?
Stop slacking. I'm kidding. Get on the ball. Gosh, you know, that's tough because it's so different for everybody. You know, like, I was talking about it this afternoon with a couple of my girlfriends that we're doing this book club with, like, because the book club is about her conversion story, you know, and it's like that moment when God calls you. And I was just thinking, like, gosh, like, how blessed are we that, like, our hearts were open to hearing that, you know, because her remark was, I think God's calling everybody. Like he's calling to all of us, you know, and especially like as a mom, like now, like my prayers of conversion, they're for my kids, you know, and it's like, gosh, like you just pray, like these tears are for something, Lord. But like, why does one kid have the conversion? Why does, one man or woman hear and respond, and another for years and years and years doesn't? Like, and who's to say they don't with their last dying breath? Like, we just don't know. So everybody's story is so different. But I think a key for me, and for anybody, is really just to stay connected to holy people, like good people that are also seeking, people that desire conversion, people that know that they need more, and that more is probably Jesus, and not material things. But I think to surround yourself in a community is key, because we can't be disciples in silos. Like, we have to be in community. And so you need, that was huge for me, to have a community of people, and to read scripture, to stay in God's word, because that's where he's speaking to us, very tangibly and obviously. Like, it's there, it's in the book. So if you struggle with any of that, I would just say to really make reading scripture a habit. And for me, obviously, that was walking with purpose. I mean, I never read the Bible. I never read scripture until I was in my 40s. And when I started with walking with purpose, I remember thinking, like, should I be doing this? Like, I've never read the Bible. Like, I just started reading scripture. And the way I started reading scripture was from that sweet little book, Jesus Calling, right? And it was like, someone gifted that to me. My lovely Protestant friend gave me Jesus Calling. And I started with that. That was my morning prayer. And after a couple of weeks, if anybody's read it, like, there's like this little paragraph of like Jesus talking to you. And then it lists a few scripture verses. So I would look those up in the Bible. And after a couple of weeks, I noticed I'd read the verse, and then I'd think, well, what comes before that? And then like, oh, well, what comes? And like, eventually I was like, well, I don't need Jesus calling. He's calling me in the scriptures. Like, I'll just read the Bible. It's all there. That's easier. And so I think if you could find something like a Walking with Purpose, which like really, we teach women how to read the Bible. And I needed that. I think that's huge. So like, to have like those people around you, because part of the conversion, at least for me, and probably for many people, is it's going to require that you lose certain things, habits, and people in your life, that maybe aren't good for you or not leading you on a holy path. And that could feel like ripping your limbs off with your teeth, right? Like, that doesn't feel good all of the time. But it's super necessary. So to find those people, holy people, and holy people can be fun. We're not boring, right? Like, we can be like funny and totally relevant and have current haircuts. Like, it's not like you have to be like creepy to be holy. Like, find that, like, I think it was Chris Stefanik saying, like, are holy people creepy? And he was like, yeah, some are, but they were creepy before they were holy. So, like,
you say that a lot. You're like, weird people are just weird.
Yes.
Right? There's all kinds. There's weird atheists. There's weird Catholic. Like find the weird ones. But yeah, that would be my advice, of just to kind of put yourself in the proper environment, that is going to sort of lend to that big like aha moment, or he's always calling us, and it's just we have to put ourselves in a posture of receiving. And that can be really hard, especially today with the constant noise and the constant busyness and the dumpster fire of a world we're living in right now. And everything is backwards and nothing makes sense. And we look like the crazy people. It's hard to find those people in those places and just the quiet. That was probably...
Would you offer... Sorry, I was going to say, would you offer also would you offer the new Laura Phelps challenge of going to daily mass every day? I think you could adopt it from Matthew Kelly and now make it your own challenge for people.
He's old anyway. Kidding. He's like,
I think that's a wonderful way of like...
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, And it's funny because I actually just said this to my husband tonight, who was looking mighty stressed after a day at work. And, we're all working at home now. Like, COVID hit, we all started working at home, and we're all still working at home. I personally don't think it's a great idea. Every day I'm like, I wish I had an office. Like, I need people. I need to be with people. And he's very happy in front of a screen and Zoom and that all day. But, like, you see it wearing on him by the end of the night. And so I just kind of threw out there tonight, like, what you need. Like, what would be great or help you is, number one, like try to get to a daily mass, like once of the week, like just one other day besides Sunday. Every day would be great. I'm at a point now, I don't get there every day. I mean, my son has a football schedule where like pick up and drop off are like right during mass. So like, I understand that's not feasible or possible for everybody depending on the season of life you're in. But like one other time a week other than a Sunday, I think that's a great thing to do. It's the Eucharist. Like, it's going to change you. It's going to change you. So get there. I think that would be a wonderful challenge for people. Especially all those cute
and
young dads with all the kids. Bring them to ball.
I was just gonna tie it back to that though, because to your point about surrounding yourself with holy people and a good community, like those are the places to find these other people who are in a mess and who are being healed but know who the healer is to find them there. So like to find good holy people doesn't mean that you are looking for people that have it all figured out, have their life all together. Like they're going to be people that you can relate to and walk with because you guys are walking in the same direction. Like you're walking towards the same person.
With purpose.
Sorry. Thank you.
I love that.
Lisa Brennick-Meyer gets 2 cents for every time we put in a pun.
I love it.
But I guess I just want to like maybe the connection that the three of us have, like to maybe break down that barrier of the intimidation factor of like speaking to some of these people that you see at Mass, like that family that you see on Sunday, or that couple, or that guy or that girl at Mass that you see every week or, every once in a while at Mass, like to go out and say something, and to be a little bit weird and awkward, but like
yes.
We're all kind of in this weird space of trying to get community and trying to find people that can hold us accountable, that can walk with us, that can help us, like what direction are we going? Where are we going, guys? And so I think, or I hope that like kind of our friendship stemming from all of us thinking something different of the other people.
Right.
Is encouraging to our listeners, like just put yourself out there a little bit, but in the place where you will find other people like yourself.
Yeah. I love that. And because it's so true. It's so true that the people that are showing up and the people that are there daily, like I remember seeing like a young woman like on her knees, like, and it was like, when you see like that new person that shows up, and now I know like, oh, like they're here for a reason. like they are here searching and they're here for something. It's like that group that has it all together. Like, who are they? They're dead. Like, no one has it all together. Like, unless you're dead and you made it to heaven. Like, so it doesn't exist. Yeah. And we fool ourselves into thinking that. Are there some unfriendly people at the church? Sure, they're everywhere, right? But for the most part, like, yeah, like put your, like, it's hard. Like you said, like, you feel weird. Like, nobody wants to be the weird person. But we're all weird, so go for it. What I find weirder now is being like the weird person that like is going to go and like talk about Jesus to like, the stranger at the airport, or like, like, oh gosh, I've got to start evangelizing now. like this is so awkward. Yeah. But yeah, at church, like you're in good company if you feel weird, because we're all there because we're all, like you say, like we've just been given the grace to recognize who the healer is and that it's not ourselves. And we know where to go to find him. I think that's really neat.
I think it's beautiful that we, at least you and I went through our deepest healing during like our initial time at daily mass. Cause like the time that we met, like we were going through a lot in our marriage, and in the St. Joseph documentary that we were in, like we mentioned it there, that like it was life-changing to be able to go to mass and encounter the things I encountered through grace. And it's sad to me that a lot of people are intimidated by the church and by going to church and confession and everything that the church kind of has, because they feel like they need to be perfect in order to participate. Or feel like, they're going to be ashamed or made to feel shame and made to feel guilt, and they just don't want any of that. And I hate that because, like you said, like we were given a grace to see that we don't have it together. The reason that you see us trying to go to mass and we try to get 5 kids to mass on time as best we can and want them to be reverent and know who Jesus is not because we're perfect and we want them to be perfect, but it's because we're imperfect and we want them to have the tools that we never had at their age. We want them to have the relationship with Jesus that we never had at their age. And there's just a different framing there that I think your story really shares, because you're just very authentic and honest about how not perfect you are and how perfect Jesus is. And I like that you go about sharing the gospel in that way, and not in the sense of like, like before Jesus I was a mess, then I found Jesus and now I'm all better. Like that's not reality. That's not real life. That's not conversion.
I also love too that you share, like, you found Jesus and there were things that needed to be purged from your life and stripped from your life, people, things, attachments to stuff. But like, you are still you, like you are still Laura, and Laura still gets to be herself. I've just been able to like unload some of that stuff that was like holding me back from really being Laura, right? And
I get to be like Laura, like family friendly version, which like is great because you lose all the shame and the regret, which is awesome. But yeah, and I think people feel like, it's interesting. I get a lot of interesting comments because I have, I've got my church crew, my holy huddle, and then I've got my kids in public school, so I've got like the secular crowd of like the kids' sports and things. And I definitely get the comments of like, I've been called like, oh, the Mother Teresa, oh, she's like Mother Teresa. And I want to say like, she's actually a saint. So get it right. Things like that do make me feel badly, to be honest. Like I've had my feelings hurt or felt like the weird one in the group, or like, oh, like, well, give that to like, have Laura pray for it. But it's all said and I understand it's because it's almost like my husband always like, well, that's a compliment because they recognize it and they're just awkward about it. Because they don't understand it and they don't have it. And so, you do get I definitely have had my share of like moments, but also people that can't believe when they hear that I'm Catholic or when they hear what I do, because I'm just a normal person and I like to have fun and make jokes. And it's interesting, like what some people who don't know the Lord and aren't in a faith community, what they think we like. I don't know what they think we're doing, but like we're just like boring,
holding hands,
and praying at night. I don't know who these people are. Totally. So, it's good. It's the purging and the pruning and all that. It's all very necessary, and it just makes everything better. It really does. We hold on to so much that is just not good for us, and just obstacles to His grace. And I think that's another thing, Renzo. You talk about wanting to like have a conversion or wanting to open yourself up. It's going to require this, right? Like Matthew the tax collector had to in that like famous painting of like sitting there with his money bag, like he had to get up and follow, and you leave the money bag. Like, so like, I always think like, gosh, like what are the money bags we're all holding on to, where Jesus just wants to appear and say like, follow me, and like, leave that. Like, that's got to go. If you want to follow me, you can't take that with you. you know, and he says that, right? Like to go on the journey, like, don't take anything. No tunic, no second tunic, no this, no that. He does say bring sandals, so we can bring shoes, but like no popper, no walking stick, like all of that, like nothing. Do not let anything get in the way to distract you of following me. But he doesn't say in like, oh, leave your personality, you know, like leave the like. I actually think Jesus is funny. He says some funny things. Yeah, he doesn't say that, and he loves those pieces of us. It's just that other stuff that we carry that is not necessary, and that stuff is not who we are. And I think more often than not, that's like our security blankets, right? Those like bad habits or those sins or temptations that we hold on to that we think are who we are, or make us better, or make us funnier, or more likable, or more attractive. And they don't. And Jesus knows that. Like, he does know best. So, you know, losing that stuff doesn't mean we lose our personality or we lose our, you know, our sense of joy. I'm more joyful. I have more happiness than ever after making some decisions of things that I needed to cut out of my life, things and people that 100% had to go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight and talking with us and sharing your heart and your story. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can you share with us where people can find you and everything you're doing?
Yes,
because you're doing a lot of different things on a lot of different social medias.
I know. I'm a little ADHD.
And I will put it all in the show notes.
I love it. Listen to that. You're so official in the show notes.
Well, in the show notes, or in the description, the video description on YouTube, if I get it up there.
I like show notes. That sounds good. Yeah, so you can find me. You guys I'm so proud. Look at you guys. This is awesome. It's so great. So great. You could find me. So I've got my own personal website, which is just lauramaryphelps.com. And on my website, like, you could find my speaking schedule, which, praise be to God, is really starting to fill up now. I think people are coming out of the summer and pandemic and ready to get back at it. That's really my sweet spot. It's my favorite thing, which is funny because it's the thing I will complain about the most, and I have the most desolations right before getting out and speaking. Like, I'm suddenly at the airport crying, like, I should just be home with my family. I don't want to do this. And then I go, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus. So you can find my speaking schedule there. And I blog a little bit over there, but most of my writing you'll find over at Walking with Purpose, which is walkingwithpurpose.com. I blog for Walking with Purpose. And also I've got a YouTube show that's up on the Walking with Purpose channel called Truth with Handles that I do with my friends Mallory and Christy. And we just have so much fun. We'll be filming a second season this October. So we'll be going to Denver, and we're going to be doing some more episodes of that, which is great. I've got a Patreon page, which is just really fun. I've got just great people who come and support me in my writing, and we do some fun things together. We consecrate ourselves to Mary and do, you know, stuff like that. They just to see some of my work and my writing, and I think that's it. I'm on Instagram. I love it and hate it all at once.
Are you doing the Instagram lives with for your book club?
We are. We just started that today. So I'm doing a book club with Mallory and Christy, and Mallory Smythe is the author of a book. Let me see if I get the title right. It's super long. It's Rekindled, How God Called Me Back to the Catholic Church and Set My Heart on Fire. Something like that. I joke that the title's longer than the chapters. It's a great, great book, and we're real excited. So we just started going live. So we're going to be live every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Instagram. We have a private Facebook group. We're in that as well. And our YouTube page is up and running also for Rekindled the Book Club. So we'll be on all those. And
it's a lot of stuff to put in the show notes.
This is a lot of show notes. It's a lot of, so sorry. Hopefully that will lessen. We'll eventually just pull the audio, and the hope there is just to have a podcast with that. And Laura _M _Phelps at Instagram. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm there, but I do nothing. And that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, and your 2 books.
And your 2 books. So for more of your story, reading Sweet Cross is it's a good place to start.
Yes. So, that book is my heart. Sweet Cross, A Marian Guide to Suffering, and that's just based on the virtues of Our Lady. And so every chapter is a different virtue. And just I talk about how I've needed it in my life, and how that really imitating Mary and her virtues has been just a game changer for me in learning how to carry my cross well and to be obedient to the suffering that I'm given and to stand at the foot of the cross. That's been huge. So you could get that at the OSV bookstore, or that other place that
in the show notes.
Yeah, in the show notes. Put it in the show notes. Anything else? What else do I want to put in the show notes? That's it. That's me. I'm so glad you guys had me.
Thank you, Laura.
It's so fun to see you and talk to you.
So good to see you.
So thank you, and we are I'll sign off here, but don't leave yet, so we can say goodbye.
So we could all hold hands and pray together.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll make this a smooth transition somehow. But
goodbye to our listeners.